let's talk big picture. Let's rank the quarterbacks in the NFC West from best to worst, just so we understand where we're working. So we are on the same page.
All right. So, I mean,
let's go one by one and have a little discussion.
You want to go from 1 to 4 or 4 to 1?
Oh, no, 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
Yeah.
So 1 is Russell Wilson for me. He had a really rough season this year. There were a lot of problems with his play. I think that he had a lot more to do with Brian Schottenheimer being fired than people would like to say. This let Russ cook thing is a sham. I think there's a reason that the Seattle Seahawks have played the style of football that they've played the last few years, and it's made sense because Russell Wilson, as good as he is at doing certain things, there are some certain limitations where his height does make an impact and his process is a little flawed. And for those reasons, he does have limitations. Even with that being said, he's a top 5 quarterback. He's proven he's done it. He's still clutch as hell. And with Russell Wilson on your team, you have a shot to win 10 to 12 games every single season and win your division. And so for that reason, even though he had a down season, though 40 touchdowns, 13 interception doesn't look that way, you have to really look at the context of the entire season. I'd have to say that he would still be the number 1 quarterback.
Let me say I agree, and why I think he had a down season, quote unquote, and why the whole let Russ cook thing was a sham and why it got Brian Schottenheimer fired, essentially, is the whole idea of more passing for Russell Wilson. It sounds great because he's a hell of a quarterback, but they have a terrible offensive line. And they've had it for years. And what they try to do is, like the Niners, is try to bring in run blockers and have like some kind of a run game. But when it's time to drop back and pass, Russell, you're on your own. You're quick, you're fast, you protect yourself. Well, he's about 32 now. He's not quite making 3 pass rushers miss in the backfield and throwing downfield the way he used to. I mean, he used to be able to do that. I saw him in the playoffs this year. He looked like he was getting smacked around by the Rams, and he just doesn't have that ability to make guys who were much younger than him miss anymore. And so you're going to need to either give him an offensive line or give him a run game. He's not just going to be able to be Kyler Murray and be a superhero, even though he's better than Kyler Murray. He's 32 now.
Yeah, and then number 2, so you're asking me to basically pick between 2 guys people have told me that I'm overly positive about in Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford, and I'm going to take Kyler Murray because of his legs. I'm going to take him because of his legs, and I think that makes a big impact. And for whatever reason, we have this culture where we don't include quarterbacks' running stats and the touchdowns that they get with their legs. Like somehow a passing touchdown is worth 15 points and a rushing touchdown is only worth 6 points. But guess what? When Kyler Murray has 26 passing touchdowns and 11 rushing touchdowns, that means he's accounted for 37 touchdowns. 37 touchdowns in a season. That is phenomenal. I think that his shoulder, that hit he took, I didn't think he was the same ever since he took that hit. I think there are some questions, with Kyler Murray, the way he sees the field, his mental process, Cliff Kingsbury's lack of creativity, and
he's still improving. Yeah, he's in the league.
Of course, and Cliff Kingsbury isn't very multiple with what they do on offense. It's the same set of like 5 different route concepts for short passes, couple quarterback runs. It's really overly relying on Kyler Murray's really special.
That pass where like all 5 guys run a curl. It's like, you got him there, Cliff.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really relying on hey, Kyler, I don't really got a good play here, but if you could just run around and get 20 yards.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but you're going to make this work.
And it's overly relying on him because of that. And I think their weapons, they have D-Hop. Outside of D-Hop, I know Larry Fitzgerald is a Hall of Famer, but he's slower than a lot of the more athletic offensive linemen in the NFL these days.
Christian Kirk is a total product of Kellen Mond. I mean, he's okay.
Nah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. But they drafted so many receivers, and a lot of them have been misses. Their run game is nothing really. I thought it was one of the better things about Cliff Kingsbury 2 years ago. I didn't see that level of creativity with his run game last year. So that's that. And so ultimately, I'm going to have Kyler Murray second, though I think it's him and Stafford are right neck and neck. But
the argument for Stafford to be second would be experience. That's it.
I think with Stafford, though, too, even as one of the biggest Stafford fans out there, I'd have to say that prior to Matt Patricia getting fired, he wasn't playing his best football. Once Matt Patricia got fired, Stafford just took off like a rocket and started playing the way he was playing at the start of 2019 with Darrell Bevell, those first 8 games where he was playing like maybe the best or second best quarterback in the NFL. So maybe there was
we make fun of Cliff Kingsbury, but Kyler hasn't had to play for Matt freaking Patricia.
True.
That's a different.
But ultimately, I got to take the legs into account, and Kyler Murray is just a little dynamo. He's awesome, and so he's for me the second best quarterback.
Okay, so number 3, Matthew Stafford or Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm curious. What are you going to say, Vish? I don't
want to do this to Jimmy Garoppolo because, he's the quarterback for the team I really like. I like him. I really like Jimmy Garoppolo. He's solid. He's from Chicago. Like, there's so many connections, but come on, it's Matthew Stafford. And it's because there's another physical dimension to Matthew Stafford that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have. We're talking about one of the greatest throwers of the football ever. Like, we're saying when we rank arms and we say Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Dan Marino, Matthew Stafford is right there with those guys when it comes to talent. Sure. And I think he's that good. And I can't wait to see how he looks in McVay's offense. I think that a lot of the analytics guys have been down on this move because I don't think they realize that a lot of their analytics stats get really, really boosted up by anybody who plays with Shanahan and McVay in their offense, because the offense itself is so efficient. Of course, the quarterback's going to be efficient in it. And right. So for that reason, I think a lot of the small things that people have been kind of picking at and hating on with Matthew Stafford now are going to really go away. And then the other thing with Stafford I wanted to say is, if you want to know how good a player is, instead of listening to how the media covers him, because I think the media has been awful at covering Matthew Stafford, listen to how other players talk about Matthew Stafford. Other players talk about Matthew Stafford like he's the Hall of Fame quarterback nobody knows about and that he's as good as anybody they've played against. And they say he's really smart. He's really tough. That arm is really that special. And so I think he's going to be awesome. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe not this year, but next year, or maybe even this year, he's in the MVP conversation. I think he's that good.
So you're saying the Niners have the worst quarterback in the NFC West? Wow. You'll just say anything for attention now, Vish, huh? You're just, you're just a Skip Bayless of journalism now. Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm not even a journalist, so I guess I'm the Skip Bayless of talking from your bedroom while being a college student. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, the Niners have the 4th best quarterback in the division. And I don't know if there's a lot they can do besides getting Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers to not have the 4th best quarterback in the division, because it's more about,
Cousins ain't going to change that.
Right. It's more about how good the other 3 quarterbacks in this division are. And Jimmy Garoppolo, it's not that he's bad, right? We keep like having to talk about him, and I feel like we talk about him too much in a negative connotation. He's solid. He's fine. The reason we've always had to have that conversation is because he can get better than him. He can get better too, and Kyle Shanahan always says he has reservations because of the reasons we always outline. But he's solid, really nice release, good throwing motion, for the most part accurate short to intermediate. I mean, this season he looked like a guy that lost confidence. Maybe he regains it next season if he's the Niners quarterback.
To me, he's a 28-year-old developing quarterback. He still isn't what he needs to be or could become. He turns the ball over too much. He doesn't see the field well enough. He's like Kirk Cousins. You look at Kirk Cousins, you're like, yeah, that dude is the best he could possibly be.
Right.
Jimmy isn't the best he could possibly be. I don't know if he'll ever become the best he could possibly be, but he's frustrating in that way, in my opinion.
Right, because there are moments with Jimmy, and I think that's what people really clasp at, where you see something that's a lot better than what he currently is. But the consistency is just
28, and he still has 40 career starts or something crazy, theoretically, but no.
I at some point I just got to look at what he's been since he's been here, and he's been consistently a pretty average player, which is one of those guys that's a tier 3 guy, and there's nothing wrong with being that, because he's a legitimate NFL starting quarterback, and he should be one of the 32 starting quarterbacks next week 1, and nobody will have a problem with it. He's definitely one of those guys for sure, but it's just there are some questions with him otherwise, but I think he's good. I think he's solid. But, at this point, you got 3 of the more physically gifted quarterbacks in the entire league in your division. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Niners do. I don't think it's a knock on him, because I think there's maybe 20, 22, 21 quarterbacks that would be number 4 on this list when it comes to ranking these 3 in the division.
Yeah. And with Jimmy, you can live with his picks You can live with the bad Jimmy moments, and there's like 2 or 3 a game. You can live with it. But what you can't live with is him being in and out of the lineup, on and off the field, hurt, not hurt. Can he play through it? Is he 100%? Is he going to be better next year coming off the injury? How many? You can't have that. At a certain point, he's just got to be full systems go.
I'm still waiting for the magical Matt Ryan second-year leap that everybody told me was going to happen. And, granted, it's funny because the thing is, I've always had like a consistent opinion on Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's been this. And I don't look at it as myself hating. I look at it myself being a fan, but also being realistic. And the unfortunate reality is, I always think, and I like thank my lucky stars that I didn't meet you, start talking to you, and start doing Mondays with Vish a year ago, because everybody would hate me. Everybody would have called me the Jimmy Garoppolo hater. You don't like him. You don't do this.
It's true. You would not be a fan favorite right now. I said last year before the Minnesota playoff game with my dad, I actually think Cousins is better. People let me hear that for months. Like, dude, are you kidding? You jumped the shark on that one. So sorry to cut you off, but you're right.
Yeah, and so I thank my lucky stars that we're at that point. And it's like, when you want to prove a point about Jimmy Garoppolo, sometimes I think people go the extreme. So either people go the extreme by praising him too much because they really like him and they want you to look at him that way, or they go the extreme of saying, well, look, he's so bad because it's just not fitting into people's heads what he actually is. And what he actually is a solid tier 3 NFL starting quarterback that you can win with. That's the reality of what he is.